All right, cool. So creating a Rails backend from scratch. Does anyone remember the command for setting up an API? Dakota? Yeah. So let's call it air library, like Airbnb. If you do --API, you can go ahead and set it up. It structures it automatically to output JSON, and it helps you out a little bit. It also going to go ahead and make this a Postgres database, just because it's a good habit to get into. Postgres is very good for deploying to the internet. So, great. It's already run bundle. All right, I'm going to go into my Rails library. There it is. Let's make some actual resources. So, for making resources, you all are probably familiar with like model and what other options are there? Controller. Migration was one, too. I personally, since I know I'm going to need all of these things, I need a model, I need a migration, I need a controller, I'm going to actually use resource. Because what resource does is it makes sure that all those things are spelled correctly and they're associated correctly without having to run into the chance of like putting a typo in there. So what kind of resources do we need? We need a user, we need books, and then we'll have like one more like reviews. So we can then review books as users. So let's set up a user first. Rails DE resource user. We can give them a bunch of stuff. So the point of this lecture is to kind of go over how to filter out API data. So we'll give them a bunch of content that we can then filter out later. Maybe a user has an email, a name, a password, digest. Does anyone know why I might want to say digest here? Any guesses? Bcrypt, yeah. We don't have to do that right now, but it's kind of handy to set it up that way if I want to ever employ Bcrypt and actually make this an authenticated app. Let's do, we have a user, so we maybe have an image URL, a favorite genre, which would make sense because it's a book genre. Let's see, what else? A bio, and we need some kind of location data, so we'll go ahead and do this. Latitude, longitude. Cool. You could do text, yeah. Why would you want to do text here? Yeah, exactly. All of these attributes are all implicitly strings. If you don't put anything after it, it assumes it's a string. If you wanted a little more content, you put a text into it, because a string is, I forgot the actual length, but it's shorter than text. Cool, so let's generate that resource. And if I go ahead and open this in Atom, it's going to give me some, I can go and check and make sure everything's generated. I want to close that out. Cool. So if everything worked fine, then I have, great, I have a user's controller. I've got my migration in here. It's got all my stuff in here with my text bio, my float, latitude, longitude. I have my models, just that one model. Great, everything's in there. It should be ready to go. I can test this out right now and go ahead and db create, since I'm in a Postgres, and migrate this file. Oh, what happened? Users already exists. I think it's because I already have a data. Yes, I had something built here already. So I'm going to go ahead and create it. Please don't crash. We've migrated the file, so I can go ahead and hit console and just test this out. I want to make sure that that user is ready to go. So I'll go ahead and say user.create. I don't have any validation, so I can just give it a name or something. Steven. Great. Users are created. Awesome. I can get out of here and go to my next resource. So next one would be books, right? Rails G resource. Create a book. Each book should have what? A title. Author, yeah. Probably description, like a short thing, maybe a genre. We can get fancy and do ISBN. Publisher. And then there's one more thing, which is that you may not have seen this before. What does this do? User reference. Yeah. So I think you've seen some stuff where you have a relationship where you have like a user ID column and you just give it an ID. This is doing the same thing. This is the built-in shorthand version for Rails. It allows you to set up that relationship automatically when you generate these resources. So if I do this, cool. I'm going to go ahead and Rails DB migrate one more time. Great. Let me make a book. So I have my user. I should have him. Great. I'm going to go ahead and make a book. I'll give it a title. The road. And if I give him the user, what do I put in here? Is any guess of what I should put in to build this relationship? Let's say I want to give it user, the first user.
Capital user dot first.
Yeah. You pass in the entire object in here, and that will Rails will know I'm going to build this association with the ID, and actually it will show up as an ID on the model, on the schema. So if I create that, great. If this works, I should be able to say book.first.user, get Steven. Cool. All right. Cool. Let's do one more. We'll do review. Rails G resource review. Review can have just some simple stuff, maybe some content for it, and then a review, let's say, belongs to a book, and it belongs to a user. Cool. Migrate that. And let's take a look. I already have this open. All right, cool. So we've got our models. You can see that actually, because I built that reference, it gave me a few things. It didn't give me everything. So like, what's missing here? Yeah, right. So I had to do has many, and it has many books. Users also has many reviews. And books do belong to users, but they also have many reviews. Cool. Since we have some data, we've just tested out, we've added it, we can go ahead and right now basically hit our API and see if this is working. So because I did a resource, if I go to my config, I have all my resources set up for me in my route, which means that I have my basic RESTful routes, my 7 routes. So if I wanted to go ahead and set up, let's say, an index and user, someone tell me what should be in here.
User equals user dot all.
Yeah, users equal user dot all. That's the most standard one. We want to get all the users in this case. That makes sense. And then what?
Render JSON at users.
Yeah. Yes.
So when you're rendering these into like a template, you have to use the instance variables, like at users. Do you need to do that when you render JSON?
No. It can do this. This should work the same. It's just a variable. It's really for readability more than anything else. There might be, we'll test it out when we get to active model serializers. There might be some a caveat with that. But, so, this is going to get all the users. You might have seen some in the README, like something like this. This is actually not really necessary anymore because Rails knows if you're rendering JSON, take whatever it has after it and make it into JSON. So it's a nice shortcut. You can just go straight to here. And if we get our Rails server running, since we've migrated everything, we're good to go. We can actually test this out right now. You get make sure my server is running. Great, I'm on Rails. And if I go to users, bam. So that's great. It's not very useful yet though because I'm building an app for books that users have. How do I get that relationship into my API data? Jordan? Yes. So the most straightforward way, so it's like a very simple API, you can simply do this. when you're outputting a JSON in the renderer, it's taking this, and then it's going to say, you're telling Rails, okay, also include this relationship, this association. So it knows, because we already have this built in here, that include the books, meaning I'm going to give me all the books that belong to this user, to each user, in fact. You can also go ahead and do reviews, and this should work. Yeah, there it is. Awesome. All right. Cool. So we don't have any reviews. That's interesting. Oh no, I didn't test it out. Yeah, we have one book. We have the user ID. You can see it, so it's related to user one. Great. Any questions about this so far, sir?
The syllable loss on include.
Yeah. What include does is it just basically says, hey, includes whatever attributes are tied to this user, so I can say this particular. I know that user.books is an attribute, so I can then call that and use it in here. And as a symbol, it will know, apply it to @user, and it will pull out that data. In the same way, I can do, if I did one for books, I make a second endpoint. I can go ahead and index, or in fact, let's do, yeah, index is fine. Books equals book.all. Huh?
You're on the model.
Oh, no, I'm in the model. Thank you. Books.all and render JSON @books include, maybe you just want user. Since it belongs to one user, I had to put the singular just like I would an active record on the command line. And now if I go to books, I should be able to get, yep, there it is. Cool. So we got an API running, and that's all it takes. It takes maybe 10 minutes. Once you get used to it, it's real fast to get this up and running. We want to get this a little more detail, though. What's one issue we can see here that we might have with outputting our API data, like this?
I think we use more keys to sort of, so we have like, I don't know, it's just everything's just like one key. Seems like we could break that.
Sure. Yeah, so it's a lot of content on basically the same line. What is this okay to do? Do you think this is you wouldn't want to put your password like someone like actually if you're ever ended up, say you had a user like making a Facebook type application, you don't want to give all this information to your show page. That's a security issue. You're releasing API data that's not really what you want to control. I also probably don't care, like if I'm just looking at the books, I probably don't need all this stuff. Maybe I want just to have certain content in here, which is what is really cool about Active Model Serializer. Before we get to that though, I want to show you one more thing actually, which is the other part of basic JSON output. So you can include these associations. You can also include methods. So if I say methods, let's think of a method, filtered, let's say books, or that's fine. If you actually write out filtered, like this kind of method structure here, methods and then an array with symbol here, it means I can actually write a method inside my user model called filtered books. And I can do whatever I want in here, and it will actually output that data in my JSON. So if I just wouldn't say, hi Tim, now I have that in my controller, so it's going to run that method when it actually renders out the JSON, and I should be able to, if I go to user, users, hi Tim, right? So this is one thing that you can do, like say for instance, if you want to get really granular, say you wanted to have your books, but you really didn't want to have all this content in here. Well, I could actually get filtered books, I'll take out this, and instead of actually returning all the books and all the content, I can go ahead and detail this out. I say self.books. Let's say we want to have multiple books, so we'll do a map. And for each book, Let's just get the book title. Now, this method will be included in my users, so if I refresh this page, books is just now becoming filtered books, and it has just the title. If I want to return an object, I could structure it that way too. Yeah.
So the method always fires when it's called in an array like this? Or sorry, in an API call?
Yeah, it's firing when it's packaging the JSON up. It's going and calling those methods and then executing them. So you can use this structure to get really granular. If I wanted to actually return an object that had a title and an author, with the author, and let's say in my users controller, I wanted to actually call this book. So I just did this. Looks nice. It's fine. This should override this. Actually, no, maybe it won't. Let's see what happens. This might break it. It doesn't like that. Okay. Oh yeah. Thank you. This might break it because it wants the association, and it may not like that. Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. So, lesson learned. Active picture. I hope that this doesn't have. Oh no. Does anyone remember how to kill a server? What was it? Activity monitor. What was it? Terminal. And what's good? Let's see if that works. Yes. No.
Define the PID number for that.
3.6. Slack for the class? Okay. All right. Oh, cool. Thank you, sir. And the PID is this one? Wait. Go. Three, 5, 6, 4, 2. Cool. All right. All right. Let's try this again. Awesome. Okay. So don't write your methods if they are the same name as an association. So filter books.
Is that working? Did you pause on it for just a second?
Yeah. So let's service will be running. I can refresh this, and awesome. So now I'm returning an object with those two things tied to that association.
Can we look at what filter books is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Try to copy this all down.
Sure. So filter books is being called in the controller, and here I'm calling, it's an instance variable method. So it's self.books is referring to this particular instance of user, mapping through every book that's associated, and for each book, return the book title and the author as an object with those two key value parents. Cool. But you can see though, you can imagine, I'm not going to go too much further into this level because say you wanted a really complex API, you have to really build out methods to control all this data and really specific. Also, that doesn't really resolve the issue of if I'm trying to get my user's endpoint, I still have my password digest here at the top level. If I wanted to actually return that without the password digest, I'd have to go ahead and like filter this out, like at users.map. For each user, return the entire object without the stuff I want, which is a little excessive. Yes, sir.
Is there not an exclude?
You actually probably, I think you're right. There might be an exclude one. You're right. So you could do that. Forgot if that one works, but let's see. Password digest. Let's see if this works. Come on. Come on. Oh, it didn't. So it didn't actually take it out. There might be. You're right. There's probably a way to do that. But does anyone have any questions about this before I go and show you the magic of Active Model Serializer? All right. Cool. So let's actually, before we do that, let's get some data. So this is great. It doesn't really help that it's a bunch of null data here, and it doesn't really show you the value of having this API be filtered a little better. So let's make some content. So we actually happen to have some stuff that I had just written out for the sake of speed. So you've all seen the Faker gem? Cool. Exciting. Love the Faker gem. Faker is a great thing to use if you need to fill out fake data, because it's a gem that lets you access all kinds of content. For instance, if I wanted to create a user with all this stuff that I had written out already, I don't think we have age. I can actually call Faker for like an email and for an image and for a book genre and all this stuff. So it's very handy. It's really, I recommend checking it out. I need to install this into my gem file. So I'm going to go to my Faker gem, copy this in. This is the Faker gem. And you can see there's all kinds of stuff. You can get Dragon Ball characters, you can get Harry Potter, Hobbit, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to include this in my gem file. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and get Active Model Serializer. So copy this out because this is the most up-to-date version. So what Active Model Serializer does is that it lets you do two things. It actually lets you generate new resources called serializers that will effectively hijack your JSON output. So before you actually send out data in JSON, you have the same exact structure that we have here, but before we actually, not there, here, before we actually send it out though, it catches it and controls it and filters out some stuff in a very nice and granular way. So we have our gem file. Let me go ahead.
So you could slack out that big scheme data.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get my bundle started. So I'll go over this and explain this in a little more detail. So this seed data I wrote out, just don't want to, I had to look all these up ahead of time. But what this is doing is for 50 times, create a user, give it a name with fake name, fake email, a password of 1, so we don't have to worry about remembering passwords at this point, an image URL, a favorite genre, a bio, latitude, longitude. But books, we have all that stuff we had in here, ISBN and publisher. We also have, just like you saw when we used user.first to create a association, in this case I'm actually using user.find with a random number between 51 and 50. That way we can just associate things real fast and really see what this does. So I've gone ahead and done the bundle. So now I can Rails DBC this.
But is it possible to post that into
Yeah.
Slack so we can follow along?
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
And I think I just want to take out age. Cool. All right, it's in Slack. All right, so It did not like that. Okay, what's the issue here? Let's see. Password digest, it does not like 1 in a string. On what line? Undefined local variable method 1 on line 12. Cool. Oh, it is this one. Okay. Let's just make it something else. Just in case I had some T-data already started, I'm going to go ahead and do the Rails DB reset, which will drop my tables, recreate my tables, remigrate all my files, and run that seed file all in one go. No errors, which means that's awesome. Let's check it out. Rails C. User.first. Cool. User.first is Casper Alejandra Wissock, the first. They've got an email, they've got a password, they've got an image URL. Awesome. They've got a favorite genre. Their favorite genre is mystery. They have a quote from Dune as their bio. And they have latitude, longitude. Cool. So if I actually, now that I have all those relationships and that fake data, if I go and hit my API, I should have more than just null now. And Steven is probably gone. Yeah, there it is. Cool. Sir?
It's accept.
Accept. All right, let's try it real quickly. So, accept password digest. See, no more password. That's awesome. So include, methods, and accept are your basic JSON sort of things you can modify with. But let's go and check out Active Model Serializer. So I have it installed in my bundle. The first thing to do with Active Model Serializer is you actually have to generate the resources. What you typically want to do is for every type of model you might be putting out in your API, in this case I have users, books, and reviews, make a serializer for each one. So it's very similar to writing a resource or a model. Do Rails G serializer for a user. Great. Rails G serializer for book. And Rails G serializer for review. Cool. Now, I should have a new folder here called Serializer. Sirs. And it has a 3 in there that just got generated. You can see it's Active Model Serializer. It's all set up for you, ready to go. And these are actually tied, as I said, to the JSON output on here. So if I were to actually get rid of this, what happens is render JSON users fires. Serializer kicks in, it cuts in and says, not that one. All right, only show what the serializer wants me to show. By default, it gives you one thing, which is ID. So now if I actually open up my page, I only have an ID of each user. But, so it's almost like the reverse of accept. It's basically whitelisting what you want to include. So what attributes ID, we can say name, we can say bio. What else is there? Don't have to worry about all that stuff. Maybe we don't want to worry about latitude, longitude yet, or email. The other thing about this is that just like we had include, you can also just build in the relationships right here. So books, reviews, and when I refresh this page, yes.
And so all of that is built into the gem. So like if the controller knows because of the gem to look for serializer modifier.
Yeah, and once you actually install that gem, you'll notice if you look at the details of, you can see what Serializer is actually doing. It's doing quite a lot of work actually for this one. If you look at like your output in your terminal, it'll hit it. Okay, I had a get users request. I'm going to pull those users, but then you can see active model serializer cuts in and actually takes over. And if you have this and you don't have your serializer set up, it'll say like, I can't find a serializer for it, so just return regular JSON output. Yes?
Yeah, like if you like when you put it like in the serializer page, like you were adding all the
Yes? Yeah.
you put like the books and reviews.
Yes.
So doing that, so then like you're like skipping the serializer method for books and just going straight to the books. Is that a way to?
So
Because like right now like you're showing like all of the fields of the books.
yeah, exactly. So let's see what we can do for that. You can also, let's try this. So you can call the attribute like that. You can also call it as just like a model, active model relationship, as many books. Let's see if this does anything different. It may not. So what happened?
When you call the serializer for
Yes. So if I call the attribute, it's just going to give me everything. If I call has many books, it's going to actually look at the relationship in the serializers and know, okay, that's not it. Okay, I'm looking at this serializer, only return this data, which means I can then control this. Jordan. Oh. If I wanted to say like just title and author, publisher, now I have complete control over how that data is being displayed in my API. I can take out all the junk and get only the data I need. Yes?
But that means it also changes the way books are shown, like the books index as well.
Yes.
What if you want the books to be different?
That's a great question. So you're absolutely right. So what she's saying is that if I change this to books, I'm only getting that data. So let's say I had two endpoints. I had users page where I want to see like some highlights of their books, and I want books page where I can see all the book content. What you can do in that case is you wouldn't actually want to have this relationship because this is going to just hit the serializer. You can, just like in the JSON output, you can do any kind of method you want and control that output. So let's say for books serializer, I want to have has many users. So let's go take a look at that really quickly. Oh, belongs to, sorry. So one belongs to one user. Cool, so this is filtering by serializer, which is fine. I can kind of control. I really don't ever want to have my password digest showing up in any view, so this is great. But let's say I wanted my, so that works for books, but I want my user to have, let's see. Right now users is showing this stuff. If I wanted to have my user show only that stuff, I have my book serializer be a little more in depth. I'd recognize a method like this. Let's say def user books. And just like in your model, you can actually call on your relationships here, just like before. Except there's one difference, which is that instead of calling self in active model serializer, you actually have to say, object. But object.books will work the same as calling books up here. So if I say user books, this would give me all the book data. So let's see what happens there. User books gives me all the book data, which I don't really want. Let me filter this down. Now I can say, now that I have this method here, user.books.map, where each book is, I don't know, has a title, an author, book author, and that's all I want on my user page. Just a sort of a title so I can snapshot that kind of thing. Great, and then I can go ahead and have this side be all kinds of stuff. I can have it belongs to user, but maybe I'll have my ISBN, I'll have my, what else is there, genre, So now if I go to my users page, I can just get a nice snapshot of what books they actually own. If I go to my books page, I can hit this endpoint and get all the details from my book that I want, as well as some details for the author. For the user, it does some interesting stuff here too, which is it's going to give you all the related books as well and nested data. So this book belongs to this user who has all these books, which is a little bit redundant, but there's ways around that as well. Yeah. So it's these two gems that I'm using, Faker and Active Model Serializer.
Could you go back to the controller?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the basic. One thing that it does, which is nice, is it keeps your controllers very clean, very straightforward. You can basically use the bare bones version of an index or a show, and then control all the actual output on a separate file, which is nice. Any questions about this? What's up? Oh yeah, of course. I never remember what these are because these in particular, for some reason, Active Model Serializer, this gem is not, you can't copy this from the repo. It's just not listed in the README. But in the Ruby gem docs, it'll be there. And this has a specific reference to a particular Git since it's, I guess it's moved Git pages a couple times. So there's some reason for that. But all right, cool. Well, that's it. Do you have any other questions about Active Model Serializer? Do you want to mess around with it a little more? Do you have anything you want to try? Yes.
Can we mess around with it all more?
Yeah.
What are the things that like I have trouble with integrating forms with APIs? Or maybe that's a question for after.
Well, we're going to do a review later today, which is going to be more about like the DOM and how you take this data and you put it on a page and you can post that data. We could go into that though if we have, I mean, do you want to? Yeah.
How does Serializer relate to forms?
Hmm?
Is that a question how Serializer relates to forms?
They wouldn't really relate to forms because it's, unless you're actually like populating a form with backend data, this is really what you're getting from the server. Forms would be what you're sending to the server, right? Which, if you're used to Rails, you're used to things like having a new, right, and an edit, and that's not it. And an edit. Are these necessary anymore? Right, why?
They were only necessary for the views.
Yeah. All the action of creating an actual thing, like if you're hitting a form, would be in your create method. Here, you get your params, and with those params, you might create an instance of something. But you never actually need to look at that. You're just hitting it with a fetch. Your views are all the front end, so these can all go away.
You don't need to show pages, right?
We can do a show page. That's fine, because you might have like maybe it's your user profile. And that's going to still work the same way. User is equal to user.find, probably by params ID. And then render out JSON user. This will still be hit by the Active Model Serializer. So if I go to this, let's check this. Yes.
I'm just a little confused because
Yeah.
like I have just rendered JSON at users, but it's just giving me the full info. It's not hitting the, is there an extra step that I missed?
You have this set up in your serializer,
Um,
and you've generated.
yeah. I guess we can talk about that.
Yeah, we can follow up with it after this. So let's hit the show page. This will still work because I have RESTful routes. If I do user/1, it should show me user/1 on my API because I'm just talking to it directly. Users, let's do 40. Cool. Hit ID 40, Levada, Everado. Yeah. We haven't incorporated reviews, so we can go ahead and do that too if we wanted to just tie in one more thing to here. Say we really wanted to get like user reviews. And really all we want to do is get reviews. For each review, we only want the content and the book. Oops. And the book is review.book. So let's see if this works. Yep. So here's my, again, it's giving me all the details on book. We can go ahead and really drill down if you want to control this and detail exactly how you want it.
Sorry,
Yeah.
is object this in the self in that context?
Yeah, Serializer is a little bit different in that it's referring to the self. It's just not in the Serializer. It's just a unique thing about this gem is that once object, it's whatever the thing is. It's just gonna.
So for the user serializer object is user.
Yes, for it would be review whatever instance that object is. Yeah. Cool. All right. Any questions? No? All right, cool. Yeah. We're going to do a review this afternoon, actually using this as the base to like render some stuff on the page. We can go and set up creates as well. But if you have any particular questions, we're happy to go into detail with you. But yeah, that's really it.